Who snowboards here? Who skis? Right. Who camps? Right. How about rock climbing? What else did I miss? These are the fundamentals of the types of things that we do in SOS. Stand-up paddleboarding, let me try that. Done some fly fishing. Mountain biking, do some mountain biking.
Hiking.
Any other sports that any of you are more passionate about?
Surfing, paddling, surfing, not surfing.
Miss surfing.
All right.
Lacrosse.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Come on.
Which one?
Lacrosse.
Lacrosse?
Running.
Running? Great.
Yeah. Trail running.
Any big fans of Dancing with Wild Abandonment?
Yes.
All right. So again, in the field of youth development, and I've kind of already made this point, but I just want to kind of give it from how I learned it, is that a few years ago there was a conference here in Eagle County where some of the top youth developmental organizations were invited, and a dean from Harvard who coined the term sports-based youth development was here. And I had the opportunity to go to the conference, which is a lie. I crashed the conference, so to speak, because I was a county commissioner, and since then I've become a known conference crasher, which is my second profession. And so at that conference, I got to meet Dr. Gilno, who's now on our board. And when I meet with him, I always have to just say, could you just break it down for me? I just want to get the basics, because I'm not understanding the jargon. He says, well, there's in-school time and there's an out-of-school time. And you're working in out-of-school time. And you could be doing cultural art activity, or you could be doing tutoring, academic activity, or you could be doing sports. And inside of sports, what we're learning is sports, and especially in outdoor sports, has this great way of creating impact and engagement. You know, that sort of getting people out of their comfort zone and then being able to build their self-esteem would be the primary example. Is something that we're, as scientists, trying to understand. What people like you have grabbed the bull by the horn and done, and tried to figure out how you could be more effective more frequently. So when I go out to Boston and visit with him and say, I like to joke around too much, but I'm an Italian from the south side of Chicago, okay? And let's be very specific. I'm a Sox fan. The Cubs are a minor league team. And so I say to him, I don't understand. Why is this so complicated? You know, when you think about it, it's just that you get really stoked on a sport, and then they say it creates motivation and engagement. And then that could be channeled into some type of character development with the proper role modeling. And then what you've done at SOS is taken peer mentoring, which is what one of the roles of Anna and her cohorts, is that as a student who's gone through the program, been able to explain up to the mentors what they're doing and down to the students what's going on. Does that make sense? So if you think about it, again, that's an element that you'll be dealing with as a mentor, is you will have an assistant who's more experienced than you are, explaining to you how things are done, like Z was explaining. One of the things that students have said is, I really never got a feel for my mentor. They didn't really challenge me or talk to me about the core values, or they may not say it in these exact words. Or I felt someone, like they didn't show up, and I expected them to. You know, or they said something came up, like a widespread panic concert or some ridiculous example. It's an inside joke. But in any case, they're relying on your relationship and you're relying on their relationship. So as you rely on their relationship, you're building their experiential learning and their self-esteem. Okay? The other question I talked to Gil about is, we're not trained in this field. We have other trainings. And all over the country, people are just running out there with great intentionality, grabbing students, and what we've been noticing over the years is some really do a great job and some fail miserably. You know? And there should be some kind of training for what's called paraprofessionals that allows us to do a better job in the field of youth development. So that's what we're covering here in this, and I hope you really read through this document, and you're going to be required to take the online training, and that is from the Mentoring Institute. There's only about 12 main expert researchers in the field of mentoring, and 2 of them have created that online training. I don't know who's had a chance to go through it yet, but hopefully you'll enjoy that. And that's condensed this training down to a few hours and then the on-hill training, right? So in the field of youth development, another example I like to give that everyone could relate to is, if we were all here to talk about the Guitar Outreach Society, SOS used to be called the Snowboard Outreach Society, and we just gave everyone guitars and said, here, we're going to give you 5 days of lessons. Then you could come back for 5 days of lessons. Then you could come back for 5 days of lessons. Chances are there's not going to be a really big success rate. So you should know that the students are getting season passes. So on those 5 days that you have the students, they have another 120 days, 110 days, if they skip school, to go riding, and some will ride only the 5 days that they're with you. Some will ride up to 30, 40 days, okay? Do not worry, if you will, about the riding. That's going to happen. You're going to get anywhere from 5 to maximum 9 runs in a day. All right, with the students. By the time you meet, you get up the hill, you do 3 or 4 runs, you break for lunch, you go out and you do another 3 or 4 runs. And I taught snowboarding, and I used to ask the question to every beginner, what do you want to learn how to do today? And guess what the number one answer always is? What? Oh. Jump. Everybody wants to learn how to jump in their first day. So you're basically dealing with students who are at a point in their life, and hopefully we never grow out of it, that want to basically do like a backside 540 in the half pipe by the end of the day. You know, I mean, whatever they've seen, that's what they want to be able to try and do. And you're going to get pushed. I'm a parent. I have a 7-year-old who is put on this planet to learn how to push me. And he got a concussion on Sunday because Dad was really dumb and didn't bring the helmet, but he's such a great skateboarder and this kind of stuff. So they're going to push you to levels, and I use that example of you're driving the car, and number one, you have to be in charge of their safety. I don't know how many of you have taken your student, had them put on a bobsled, on a toboggan, and gone down the mountain because of a broken wrist, concussion, whatever. Has anyone had that happen before in any of the work that they're doing? Okay, Michaela has, and you have. In what field was that?
Well, my cousin, I was teaching how to do it. He wanted to do the same thing and go on the very top and try to write down.
Yeah. So I just want to tell you, as a person who has been in that situation, if there is a situation to figure out, I've done it. Lost student, whatever it is. I mean, it's just, the scariest thing you could possibly do on a mountain is lose your student. It's also the most embarrassing thing. And typically the only reason you lose your student is because you've tried to do something that you wanted to do. Almost every time I've made a mistake or my fellow colleagues have made a mistake is because we tried to get away with something, you know? Well, I'd like to ride the park too, so why don't we take them up to the park and, you know, they're not ready for the park, or I want to go into the trees. And if you hear that little voice going on in the back of your head, bad voice, okay? The easiest way to say it is always under-terrain your students. Ride them in an area that they're overqualified for. You could do 25 different things on simple terrain. They're not driving the car, you are. You do not want them injured. Because that kind of goes back to the whole youth development thing. You know, it's not a great development if they're in a cast and they're not coming back for the rest of the season. And the second part is you want them to always be having some level of fun. And I wish I could remember this, but this expert who'd been in the field of mentoring gave a Senate hearing testimony. And we were at this conference learning about all the best practices. And they used this little video clip of, you know, in all your years, what have you learned about mentoring and youth development? And he went to the microphone and he said, love them to death. And, you know, it just be there for the relationship building with them. And then the third part is try to teach some learning. And again, you know, Michaela, who's been doing this work for a long time, and I and others can assess pretty quickly who are the people who are operating with the learning and development, and who are the ones who are basically just a guide to make sure they know that they're going up chair 6, then they're going up to chair 4, then they're going over to chair 5, then they're having hot cocoa, and then they're going up to the play park, and then they're coming back down. I mean, again, that's easy to do, but the people who are trying to figure out critical thinking skills without saying, and no, we're teaching critical thinking skills, we're working on some form of how are you teaching some form of leadership, how are you facilitating the right opportunity that they're in for. Those are some things that, and the on-hill training Michaela could go through, we could go through it together, you could talk with one another. You can also find some ways of riding together with somebody who you might find more experienced and talking with them about how they may have tried to do that. But one of the things that I'll wrap up with that Michaela will go into more detail with, when I learned how to teach snowboarding, I was the generation of no pain, no gain. You know, where the coaches would grab you by the face mask, pull you over. Everything was shaming you into performance, you know? And so they say that you end up coaching and training the way you were coached, you know? And what the snowboard training, ski training, school training is everything about analyzing what's going on and figuring out a way to say it in a positive context or in a non-negative context. So the easy way for me to explain it is, this is what you normally see snowboarding. Somebody's going down the hill like this, okay? And you, like, so the friends were teaching them and they're like, don't bend over, stand up straight. Well, if you're an instructor, you're saying, you know, Tucker, I saw you were coming down like this. You know what I'd like to see you try to do is maybe have your shoulders over your hips this time as you're going. And your job is to make sure that it's not on a black run, it's on a run where they're actually able to manage their balance. So use that as a metaphor in the youth development field, as if you're saying, you know, how am I going to work with this word integrity? And I'm teaching snowboarding. How am I going to use this metaphorically? And somebody's maybe wanting to just, I always think of this one example at a day where all the student did was take over the class and kept riding everybody everybody, and he'd get lost and everything could go wrong with that. And I could have used the opportunity of bringing all of the actions that are going on, right or wrong, back to the 6 core values and pointing out to them about how they're using that. Like, for example, excuse me, but remember how we're working on these core values about integrity? We're talking about integrity being a team, and we'd like you to be part of the team. Would you like to lead? Would you like to be able to have an opportunity to lead the team today? Those are the different factors that we're trying to lay out in youth development. Before I turn it over to you, is there anything else to... I find it such a fascinating field because the thing that they come out with, these social scientists, and you're thinking, they studied for like 8 years for what seems like common sense. You say, what is it that we're striving for? And they'll say, dosage, duration, and saturation. And you think, am I dying? Are you giving me medication? And they say, no, but you have to have a frequency level with they don't give you one pill and you walk out the door. Here's the one pill that you need, and that is what's going to take care of your Alzheimer's or whatever it is. So that's what you guys are doing, is trying to figure out how to create that. And Michaela explained that we merged with another nonprofit 5 years ago called Meet the Wilderness that brought in the summer programming. And that's where we got that dosage, duration, and saturation. Year-round activity, long-term programming. And that is the basics of what sets most youth developmental organizations apart and success stories apart. And then the one other thing I want to add, I'm sorry I'm taking so much time to explain this, is do not be afraid to manage accountability with your students. If they are expected to show up on time or be somewhere where they said they were going to be, that has been tested in our programming as having great effectiveness. How you operate with that, you have to, use the right approach. It's not like you screwed up because you didn't show up. But they have signed an agreement that they will be at every, Mikhail will get into this one-on-one, but essentially there is only one opting out. What has happened in the past is that season pass has become the reason why some students sign up. And they don't show up to the ride days because of whatever. Number one excuse is a sporting event that they're on. Anna plays on the soccer team. Okay. So Anna, before she signed up, had to decide soccer versus SOS and talk to her coaches because there's only 25 days for Anna in a whole year. There's that, so they had to make a commitment that they would be at these because we've made a commitment to our funders that this is the design program curriculum. And if they don't show up to these things, we're not teaching the classes, and we're not going to let students out and think, well, I could come in and come out whatever I feel like. So you gotta manage their schedules, their accountability, and we've heard it all. We've heard everything. And they've signed it, and they've documented that they're gonna be there, and if you're having any issues with it and working with the core values doesn't work, then Michaela gets to be the person who comes in and helps manage the next level of conversation. Does that make sense? Okay, Michaela?
I think that approach is really key with that, especially with some of our younger students have to rely on family members to get there or a bus schedule or something. To always letting them know, like, I'm excited that you're here, I'm really happy to see you. Let's talk about what challenges that you have or you had this morning to be able to join us at our set meeting time so that it's not like that they've had a horrible morning, they relied on a family member that was running late or overslept or just didn't care about getting them there on time. And so letting them know that we're excited to see them, but hopefully move forward.
It's probably the most talked about thing inside of SOS is managing accountability. And somebody will say that most kids will test boundaries in order to feel safe. Okay? So testing boundaries is part of the game. How you create a relationship with that is another piece. One of the things that I had wanted to say earlier that I think is somewhat interesting is going back to the whole at-risk theory is, and what may, trying to be an iconoclast about this. The greatest leaders have always typically come from very desperate backgrounds. They've overcome great adversity early on in life, which has allowed them to create great change. And so one of the things that we're trying to understand is that what we're really up to? Because again, by the end of the night, I'm going to get up and I'm going to do a bit of an altar call, and I'm going to say to you, do you believe that you can be a leadership coach? Well, the premise would be, do you see yourself as a leader? A lot of leadership experts will say leadership doesn't happen until you're in your 30s, where you have enough experience. All we're saying is, do you feel like you're confident enough, and God knows not arrogantly confident, but confident enough that you want to be part of somebody trying to learn how to be a leader of change? If you're seeing yourself as a guide, a snowboard brah, don't sign up. You know, we could find some other activity for you. But if you're going to be, we want you to be in that intention of being a leader and teaching leadership. So. Yeah.
If, say, a Sherpa decides to not disappear after 3 to 6 months, do they stay with the same group as long as that core, like, I mean, because kids come and go
Yeah.
too. I mean, you're talking about developing a longevity of
Right.
relationship. Do the mentors stay with the mentees
Yeah.
as much as
We've
possible?
had Sherpas stay with their group for 4 years and then go back and start again. There's a Sherpa down in Denver who's starting his 6th or 7th year. We have a Sherpa who's 71 years old who's going on his 3rd year, 2nd year, Jim. In Seattle, some of them are coming back for 10 plus years.
The students, we found that the longer the Sherpa stays with the program, the longer that group of students stays together as one group. It completes everything.
And the number one reason the Sherpa stays, and this is great to hear this, has nothing to do with SOS. It's the relationship that they've built with that individual.
I mean, that is entirely dependent upon SOS too. I mean,
Yeah.
it wouldn't have existed if SOS didn't exist.
Yeah. Well, it becomes kind of daunting, I think. Having lived here for 21 years, you come in, freshman class, you're like, man, I'm living in Vail, Colorado. I can't believe it. I'm going to ride every day after I get my 3rd job figured out, you know, and then somewhere around your 3rd cold and flu season in January or February, you're like, I got to start, you know, self-care kind of stuff. And that's what sometimes, overcommitting, you know, so. Whatever, or we could take a break, or it's your call. Did you want to do Buick or reinforcement?
Yeah.
And then we'll take a break?
Sure. So I've got some more things about youth development and then give you guys a break. Has anyone in this room heard of Buick before in the realm of youth development, not a car? No. Okay. It's on page 8 of your toolkits at the bottom of the page. So this is an acronym. You guys can help me figure out what it is. So B is for belonging. U is for usefulness. Yeah, let's see if I can spell it again. I is for influence. And C is for competent. So what the Building Development tells us that if you're able to meet all 4 of these inside of the activities that you're doing with your students, that you are giving them tools to become confident leaders or to be successful. So belonging, it's being connected to a group and a community. Usefulness is feeling that you have value that you provide to that community. Influence is being able to have an influence on actions, decisions, things that impact you or affect you. And then competence is having the skills and tools necessary to feel confident to be able to do what you're doing. So if we look at the different activities that we do with SOS, so our service learning, our ride days, our workshops that we do with our students, can anybody think of a way that you could, inside of one of those activities, be able to incorporate all of this? Connie?
The circle of love, the belonging, feeling like a unit, sharing ideas, and feeling that you're appreciated and accepted.
Yeah. So we're going to go with the ride day example. So the way to create that belonging is your circle.
Oh, I get what you're saying, sorry.
Yeah. No, you started off right. All right, so then how do you create usefulness inside of the ride day? Yeah, Connie.
I just have one kid in my group that's very forceful, so giving him certain tasks and responsibility to understand that his energy can be used in a positive way for the group instead of
Task, responsibilities. Sure. And then another way to look at that is roles. So what are roles that we can give our students on a ride day?
Lead the group down the hill.
Huh?
Lead the group down the hill.
Be a leader. Exactly. That's another role. Right.
Timekeeper.
Timekeeper.
What's it?
Yep.
The navigator.
Navigator. Anyone else? I like the fun keeper. Making sure the group's having fun. Or the person that checks in to see if we need a break, if anyone's hungry, if anyone's cold.
Snack holder.
The encourager. The encourager. Exactly. What about influence? What are different ways that we can incorporate influence into our ride days? Connie.
Letting them determine what rides to take or what lifts, and like having them be as interactive as possible during the day.
Yep, so interactive with the group and then decision making. So with decision making, this is one that's really important where we still create that decision making opportunity inside of our boundaries. So if we're not ready to all go on a black run, that instead of saying what run do you want to go on, it's we can go on this run or this run. What are you guys thinking? So making sure that they know what their choices are inside of the boundaries and expectations we've already set. And then competence. How can you incorporate competence into the ride day? Something that Anna gets to do a lot of is being able to teach each other different things. So something that I like to do with the group is ask the group, each member in the group, to think of something that they feel really strong and confident in, to pair up with somebody and to teach each other that thing. It can also be not just in the sport, but also around the core value, around anything else that you guys are discussing and focusing on during the day. So giving them an opportunity to share their knowledge and their ability with their peers. Does anyone have any other ideas, examples, questions? All right, cool. I'll leave that up. The other thing that I want to go into real quick is positive reinforcement. So there are different ratios of how much positive reinforcement you should be giving to your students in contrast to how much coaching that you're giving to them. Do you guys know what that ratio is, or different ratios that you've heard? So for every time I say, I need you to listen more to others when they're talking, how many times should I be giving them positive reinforcement?
11.
11! So, thanks, Sally. So what we have listed in your toolkit is 11 positive comments to your student or positive coaching to your student to that one coaching that is looking to correct something. So students, especially young students, they are very told. So if you say, you're doing really well in the snow, however, you need to do this, they're going to hear the however you need to do this. They're not going to take in what they're doing well unless we tell it to them so much that it outweighs that one coaching bit that we had. So if I tell Marty that he needs to listen more when others are talking, I ask me to tell him that I really like his energy and his enthusiasm, that he has great ideas to share, and then give him as much encouragement and positive reinforcement. And so looking at those behaviors and making sure that we're saying what they are that we appreciate in our students. There's an acronym that's not in your toolkit. It's TTL. If you guys can probably remember it. It's well, I don't remember all of that, but it's timely. It's not TTL, it's something else. But you say what it is, you point it out as it's happening, so make sure you're doing it right then. Say what it is.
TLC.
TLC, thank you. I think I added the extra T. So you tell what it is, you tell them what you liked, and then you, compliment it, yeah. So when you're giving reinforcement, you want to make sure that you're being very specific, that you're doing it timely, and that students feel like they've understood you.
It's tell it, label it, and celebrate it.
Thank you. Tell it, label it, and celebrate it. And I added an extra T to say timely, to do it right then, as it happens. So how much positive reinforcement do we give our students? 11 to 1. So finding ways, and it takes a lot of energy on your behalf to be able to keep up with that ratio. So when you're thinking about the days that you spend with your students, even your 2-hour service project, it could take every bit of energy you have for the day to be able to provide them that positive experience, positive reinforcement throughout that experience. So thinking about how much sleep, how much coffee, how much whatever you need to sustain that energy through the day with